Cardinals, and you're listening to WICR.
Hello, welcome back, everyone. Welcome to Sports on the Fly. I am your host, Ian Sachs, today. Ken Reichman, not here, getting ready for the women's basketball game at Ryder tonight. If Ken does stop by, we will certainly throw him on the air. But as of now, I am, as you would say, flying solo here on Sports on the Fly. And great weekend set up for sports, and I'm going to jump right into it. Got to start off college football. That's where we're starting off today. College football. The conference championship games are this weekend, and of course, some conferences do not have a championship game, which posing a little bit of a dilemma for the college football playoff selection committee. But jumping right in, the first really big game of the weekend, or really might even be the first game of the weekend that matters for the playoff system, is the Pac-12 title game, and it is between the Arizona Wildcats and the Oregon Ducks at Levi Stadium, home of the San Francisco 49ers. And really, it's going to be a very interesting matchup. Oregon has lost has lost a total of 2 games the last 2 years, and those 2 losses have one thing in common: Arizona. So definitely, Oregon knows what they are getting themselves into, and really, when you look at this matchup, Arizona ranked number 7, Oregon currently ranked number 2. Arizona, they have 2 losses on the year. They are 10-2, and those losses coming at home against USC 28-26, and then on the road at UCLA 17-7. They played Oregon back on October 2nd. And the Wildcats won 31-24. So Arizona knows what it takes to defeat Oregon, and I do not see them doing it again this year. The Ducks, I feel, are just too good to lose to Arizona 3 times in 2 years and twice in 1 season. It's just not going to happen. The Ducks having 2 wins over top 25 teams. September 6th at home against Michigan State, 46-27, and then on November 8th defeating number 17 Utah 51-27. The job that Marcus Mariota has done, it is phenomenal there, and I think he, as of now, would be my pick to win the Heisman Trophy. Just the Oregon defense is not that good. They continually give up around 20 points a game, and points against averaging to 23.3, but their offense 45.9. That is ranked 4th in the nation, and just the job that Mariota has done there. When they haven't relied on their defense this year, it's been relying on Mariota. They've won in spite of their defense and because of Mariota. So I just do not see that Oregon is going to let Arizona keep them out of the playoff picture and win the Pac-12 title game. It just would not make sense that Oregon, being such a premier program, would lose twice in 1 season to an Arizona team. Now, jumping over to Saturday, great slate of games. Starting off right, went with Oregon number 2. Gotta stay in the top 2 there. So we will go to the SEC for the number 1 Alabama Crimson Tide squaring off against number 16 Missouri. Again, Alabama and Oregon in very similar positions. Win and in for the playoff. Really no discussion as to whether, what seed they might be or whether they'd be in. If Alabama wins, they're in, they're number 1. If Oregon wins and, let's say Alabama wins, Oregon is number 2. No questions really about that. And I see Alabama taking this one. I think that when you look at the way that they just turned it on in the second half against Auburn last week, in the Iron Bowl, Alabama is just too tough to beat, and they are so close to the playoff that they are not going to let it slip away. Look at last year, they were 1 win away, or I guess more 2 wins away from going to the BCS National Championship game, having to beat Auburn and then win the SEC Championship game. But, they lost to Auburn on the, field goal return, 109 yards or whatever. And so Alabama since then has been so determined. They're not going to slip up against Missouri. I do not see that happening whatsoever. But now, let's say Alabama, Oregon, they take care of business. Then we get to the real exciting part. 3 and 4. Start off with number 3, TCU. The Horned Frogs taking on Iowa State. TCU 34-point favorite, something like that. I see them taking this game pretty easily. I don't think anybody's really debating that. It's going to be TCU there. So they're going to move to 11-1. Now their one loss is to Baylor, who's ranked number 6 right now and has a very tough game against number 9 Kansas State. Now Baylor is also 10-1, just like TCU, and they own the head-to-head over TCU, winning that wild, crazy, high-scoring game, 61-58. But then the following week, the Bears fell at West Virginia, 41-27. So right now, the committee is saying that TCU is ranked 3, Baylor is ranked 6. But Baylor has the head-to-head. The selection committee's reasoning for having TCU ahead is that when you look at the entire season, their overall body of work is better than Baylor's. So, that being said, when the committee started this process, they said that when they took over last year, they said that head-to-head is going to be an important factor. Now, looking at that, head-to-head is not such an important factor. But I like the fact that they are looking at the overall body of work. Because going with that any given Sunday philosophy, any given team can beat any given team. Like, let's say if TCU falls to Iowa State this week, you're going to tell me that Iowa State is a better team than TCU? Well, they won head-to-head. No, you have to look at the overall body of work. And I'm going to use the reasoning that I think it makes sense to have TCU first, because when you look at it, TCU's loss came to the number 6 team in the country. Baylor's one loss came to an unranked team. When you put it that way, yes, TCU, that's a more quality loss. So it's more, as you would say, understandable that they would lose that game than to some unranked team as Baylor did. all that is good, and then we come to the number 4 team in the country, Florida State, the only undefeated team, and the defending national champions. They haven't lost a game this year, and they went undefeated last year. So they haven't lost in about almost high 20s, almost 30 straight games. They haven't lost. And right now, they are the number 4 team in the country. Now, granted, they have not been doing a good job. They are squeaking by every single week. The last week, 24-19 over Florida. The week before, 20-17 over Boston College. Before that, 30-26 over Miami. Then they did have, a 2-touchdown win against Virginia, and a very much of a comeback victory against Louisville on October 30th. But just this team has not been playing the best of the best as the SEC teams have been, and just squeaking by. But you have to look at it. Wins are wins, and at the end of the day, that's all that matters. So Florida State, provided they beat Georgia Tech, a very good Georgia Tech team who's ranked number 11 in the country right now, if they beat Georgia Tech, there is no way that they can be held out of the college football playoff because they're undefeated. Everyone else has at least one hiccup and loss on their schedule. Florida State does not. Yes, they haven't looked that good. They haven't looked that dominant. But a win is a win is a win. And at the end of the day, that's what matters most. It doesn't matter if you win by 600 points or if you win by 1 point. A win is a win. And Florida State right now is the only team that has won every single game. Now, the teams that are on the outside looking in. You have number 5 Ohio State playing in the Big Ten championship game Saturday night against number 13 Wisconsin. Ohio State, such an outstanding story. They're on their 3rd quarterback this year. They will be starting their 3rd quarterback. Just let that sink in. 3 quarterbacks, and this team is ranked number 5 in the country, only lost 1 game, undefeated in the Big Ten. This team is just molded together, and really they have put together quite a sensational season. Now, let's say they beat Wisconsin. Should they get in? That is a tough question, because then let's say all the top 5 win. Right now, say all the rankings hold, Ohio State would be out. Alabama, Oregon, no question, they're in if they win. Florida State, I think there's no way that you cannot have them in. I really think that there is zero chance that, I don't know about zero chance, but zero way that you can defend keeping the only undefeated team, the defending national champions, out of the playoff for, this one-loss team. Now, granted, Ohio State, great story, but they might have to be the ones out. Now, TCU, the Big 12, I don't think it was that strong this year. I think the Big 10 was a little stronger than the Big 12, and so for that, I might favor Ohio State over TCU. But let's say the top 5 all win out this week. It will be for what I think should be the locks are Alabama, Oregon, Florida State, and then really the debate would be between TCU and Ohio State. Now we get to the seeding. Of course, Alabama 1, Oregon 2. No question there. Florida State, you could say, should be 3. And I think that they should be. But that would mean that they would have to go to the Rose Bowl to play Oregon, which is very favorable for the Ducks. Whereas if they drop to the 4, then they would only have to travel to New Orleans, but they would have to match up against Alabama. Now, the committee would probably prefer to do that so that they draw more fans to the Sugar Bowl, and that would be, it's just a sensational matchup. So right now, if the rankings hold, that is what would happen. I do kind of hope that happens. Of course, it'd be a lot more fans there, but definitely, I think with wins, Alabama, Oregon, and Florida State secure spots there in the top 4, and then it's up for grabs who joins them as TCU, Ohio State, Baylor, if Oregon loses to Arizona, Arizona could slip in. So really, it will be an exciting 2 days in college football, and then the 4 teams for the playoff get announced Sunday, 12:30 ESPN. So very quick turnaround from the last game ending probably around 11 o'clock Saturday night, and then boom, 13 hours later, we know who's going to be squaring off on New Year's Day in the 2 national semifinals. So it will turn out to be a sensational weekend. I cannot wait for it as we get set for the college football playoff. Take a quick break here on Sports on the Fly. Come back, talk a little pro football, maybe a little NBA, and we'll get you set up.
Hey, New Rochelle, it's Ken Dashow from Q1043, and you are rocking to WICR.
This is Jessie Ledoux, Miss International 2013, Class of 2010. You're listening to WICR.